I'd tell you like I normally do to go out and get a respirator for this stuff, but due to the recent events, you really can't find them now. So hopefully you stocked up when I've been telling you earlier.
The way this gun works, guys, is that pretty simple. You just fill up the hopper, and then you have an off and an on valve. That's it. Connect your air hose to it.
Welcome back, guys. We have a busy episode this week. We're going to be doing sandblasting. We're going to be detailing the motor. We're going to get everything in primer and in paint. Should be a lot of fun. Stick around. All right, guys, welcome back. We are to the point now where we are ready, and we are going to start priming this frame and scuff it down and hopefully get some paint on it. This is the moment I've been kind of waiting for because there is so much cleaning and stuff involved leading up to this point. Now I've got the ventilation fan on, I've got my DIY $60 welding hood fume extractor, motorcycle exhaust fume extractor, welding fume extractor. If you haven't seen the video for that, I'll put a link up above, but that's just going to help pull some of the fumes out of the workshop. And what I've done is I've masked off some of the components that I didn't want to get overspray on. And I've actually masked off a little brake linkage in the back here. The entire frame has been all scuffed down. If you haven't seen last week's video, I'll put a link up above. I showed you all the process that we went through to get it to this point. The entire frame has been Scotch Brited, and then we went over it with a rust converter, and now we've got everything masked off that we don't want to get overspray on. I left the key lock in here and this aluminum block. That's the only thing I've really masked off, so to say, that I could take off, but I don't want to. And now we're going to start priming. I've got some rattle can primer. I got it all suspended off the ground so I can get up underneath it. Just hanging by some thin wires, and we're ready to rip. Let's do this. Like I've said in previous video, guys, wear a respirator when you do stuff like this. It's cheap. I mean, this is a $10 respirator. It's made from 3M. Put links down below. I've had this quad for probably over 20 years. If you guys haven't seen the playlist, I'll put a link up above and you can see what this looked like before we started this project. But I am trying to keep this as realistic as possible, similar to something that you guys might do. You might be shopping on Marketplace or on Craigslist and you find one of these deals and you pick it up and you kind of want to go through it. Well, that's what I'm doing here. I'm not looking to build a perfect machine, and we talk about that a little bit further into the video. I just want to build something that is very reliable, that my grandson can get on and enjoy it, and it looks good, and he'll have a lot of fun on it, and that's what it's about. And when he comes over, although he's only 2 right now, he loves to come over and play with this and be part of it and be involved, and he actually calls this his motorcycle. So now I got the frame all in primer, and holy smokes, guys, does this thing look awesome. I am super happy with how this is coming out. Again, this is a budget DIY build that we're doing here, and I'll tell you what, this looks just as good as any new frame that you would buy. So you can see, guys, what I've done over here is I'm actually now scuffing up. It's just so time consuming. I'm scuffing all these parts with some Scotch Brite, and then I'm going to go back through, hit them all with primer, just like I did on the frame. The parts for this four-wheeler, some of these parts, they don't even make them anymore. They're discontinued. Like, for example, the rear brake cable, that just isn't made anymore. They just don't make it. So you either have to find one, or you have to go have one custom built. Part of doing stuff like this is you have to document how things go, because when you put this back together, you don't want to put this piece here and this one here. Part of that is document it in video, like we're doing right now. So I actually have a nice video document of this. So this long tab, one way of remembering it, this long tab will have this long piece on it, and the words on this go on the top. Now we got a nice video reference, so when we put this back together, we know how it goes. Just try to take this out as well. Thank God these are nice and pliable. Yeah, these are good. So we'll just clean these all up nice, make it look real good. Now we can get a real good finish on this airbox. This rear brake cable was working a little rough, so I tried lubing it. I took it all apart, and I have a power luber from Motion Pro to force it down in, and I pulled this sheath back, but it's just kind of rusty inside this cable. Well, all the parts warehouses, they don't make one. This part new was about 10 bucks. I was able to dig and dig and dig, and I scrounged the internet and I found one for 40 bucks and it's an OEM one. It's a brand new one from Honda. It's a new old stock. So, but yeah, if you can find parts that are no longer made for these things, I'm kind of a firm believer that I'll probably just buy stuff just to buy it and have it, so that if something goes wrong with this, I'll have factory NOS parts for it. So that's kind of one of the reasons why I'm trying to like save money on doing certain things myself. And you know, rather than powder coat the whole entire frame and have someone do that and send it out to sandblast, I'll take that extra money and I'll buy brand new OEM parts for it. So just like before, I got all my parts cleaned and hanging from the ceiling, and just got to go through and dust them with a couple coats of primer, and then everything on this quad that needs to be black will already be ready to be in primer and be ready to be painted. So that'll be a good feeling. That's a huge step. It takes a long time. I've got hours in sanding and cleaning these parts, so it's a good feeling to be finally in the point with primer. Everything here has been sprayed with a rust converter, and now we're doing a primer, and then we're going to do a black paint.
They only made this model for 2 years, 1985 and 1986. So a lot of the parts, like I said, are super rare and they're super hard to find. One of the examples of that are the tires that are on this, that are made. They just don't make them anymore. They're super rare if you can find them, and people do have them. They're on eBay, they're used, and they are a pile of money to find. But some of the parts, like I said, you just can't get them. You got to dig and try to find, and if you do find them, they're probably going to be fairly costly. So when you're out looking for a project to take on, it pays to do a little bit of research and know what you're getting into, because this type of quad, whereas they only built it for a couple of years, really would not be a very economical project to take on, especially if you were missing a lot of the important components and pieces to get it back together or to get it running.
Days now that's gone by, and what I need to do now is I just got to go back through and scuff everything up, and we are going to put a couple coats of paint on everything, and I'm using an epoxy paint, and I'll go over that with you here in a minute. Now, as far as scuffing everything up, I've got a method that works pretty good for me that I like. Is I just buy the regular red Scotch Brite pads, then I just take a pair of shop scissors and I just cut them up into little small squares. So I'd cut this piece up like there, there, and there. Cut it up into like thirds, and then I would cut it down the center. So it just works good, and you end up with these little nice small cubes. And then what I do is I just take this pad and just lightly scuff up the area. Just dull it up, and that's all you need to do. So any little imperfections you can get nice and smooth. This just works really well. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to go over everything that you see and all the stuff that's hanging, all these components, and when I'm all done, we'll come back and we'll start spraying this out.
I'm extremely happy with how this is coming out, and up to this point right now, all we really have in refurbishing all these parts are just the cost of rattle can paint and some Scotch Brite pads. Now, I'm adding up all the totals as we go, and when we finish this build, I'll go right down through it and we'll add it right up to the penny.
Holy smokes, guys. Like, my arms are killing me. My arms and shoulders. Like, 2 hours of just scuffing down and sanding up all these pieces and parts just so that we can get it ready for paint. But, you know, that's just like anything, you know. It's just like a lot like welding, you know. The welding actual part of it is relatively short compared to everything, all the prep work that leads up to it, you know, cutting, beveling, all that other stuff. So apparently painting is really not much different. So I've got everything all scuffed down with those Scotch Brite pads that I showed you. And underneath here is the masked off silver sticker that you guys have seen. Now it is time to turn on the workshop ventilation. I am not sponsored by this, so I'm going to cover their name, but this is just a roll bar in chassis paint, and you can pick this up at your local automotive store. And this is epoxy based, so it ought to be a nice durable finish on this.
Really nice, guys. I wasn't sure if it was going to be compatible with the primer I used, but it looks like no issue. It goes on really good. I'm just putting on a real light coat. Not too bad for rattle can paint, huh guys? I'm wearing my respirator, that's why I'm sounding like this. But yeah, this came out really nice. I've got 2 good coats on here. I didn't go 3, I just went 2, and I put them on, the first one light, and then I put on the second one a little bit heavier. But yeah, I'm happy how this came out. So we'll let this cure, and we'll be putting this thing back together before we know it. Quite a bit different than how it looked when we started, huh? I mean, look at that. That's, like I say, it's not perfect, but I'm not looking for something perfect. We're gonna use this and enjoy it and have fun with it. That's the idea.
So here's the part I'm looking forward to, guys. That's so now we can start sandblasting this motor down, get things cleaned up a little bit. So to do the sandblast, I'm just using this tool. I'll have the link down in the video description. I've used this a bunch. Now, if you guys are looking to clean up parts, this is an awesome way of doing it. I've actually done an entire truck frame with this, and it did a pretty good job. So this is what we're going to be using. And for the blasting media, I'm just using this. It's just glass grit. And this stuff is cheap. It's only like $8 a bag. And this is, I think, like a 50-pound bag. So, yeah, super cheap. Good way to clean parts. And that $8 a bag, if you spill a little bit, oh well. Not a big deal. But yeah, this is nice and fine. It should do a real good job on that. And all I'm using for a compressor with this is nothing fancy. It's just a regular like Craftsman, I don't know, like 35-gallon horizontal tank. And you just can't just hold the trigger down for, you know, an hour and do it. You've got to let the compressor catch up a little bit, but it works perfect for doing stuff like this, especially small stuff. Like I say, this is a relatively cheap gun. We're going to use this too when we sandblast the wheels to the four-wheeler. I'd tell you like I normally do to go out and get a respirator for this stuff, but due to the recent events, you really can't find them now. So hopefully you stocked up when I've been telling you earlier.
The way this gun works, guys, is that pretty simple. You just fill up the hopper, and then you have an off and an on valve. That's it. Connect your air hose to it, and you're in business. It's literally that simple. You can hear the compressor obviously kicked on, but not too shabby, huh? The entire motor filling up this just that one time, and it's only used one of these, so you can see that this goes a long way. So look how much better that motor looks already. What a big difference. What do you think, guys? Not too bad for a backyard DIY fix, huh? I mean, like, this does a nice quality job. So I've used 2 of these containers now. We're on to the 3rd, but it doesn't really matter. I don't care if I use the whole bag, as long as it looks better than it did.
Just how much I use, probably a couple dollars worth. Like I said, it's an $8 bag, so if you guys are looking to clean up parts and stuff, this is a good way of doing it, and it's cheap, and that includes like spilling some of it on the ground. That little hand sandblaster tool is a super economical way of cleaning parts, in my opinion. Like I said, I've done a frame to a pickup truck, and just doing stuff like this over the years is just super handy. You know, it makes kind of a mess, so you want to make sure that, you know, you got everything planned out when you do it, but pretty convenient, and it does a nice job. Alright guys, this is the part we have been waiting for. I'm going to paint everything that you see that's not masked off with this wheel paint, and I will put links down in the description of what I'm using for this stuff. But this is supposed to be a fairly close match to this factory Honda color. This is called Silver Cloud. I've got everything all scuffed up with a piece of Scotch Brite. Like I showed you, that I just take these little square pads. That works great to get everything scuffed up.
And now what I'm going to do is just start out by applying 3 coats. I start out my first one really light, and then move on to the second one, which is a little bit heavier, and then the third one is heavier than that. Then we move on to clear coat.
I don't care about that crankcase vent hose. I'm replacing it anyways. So it's old, it's kind of hard and brittle, so we'll just put a new one on it. I'd say that color matches pretty close, guys. It has a little more metallic in it than what the Silver Cloud has, but I like it. It looks good. It doesn't look fake or plasticky. It looks really nice. So now I'm just going to put on 3 coats of matte clear. I have 2 on it right now.
And I applied this the same way I did the paint. I did a light first coat, a little bit heavier on the second coat, and then the third coat I did kind of wet, which you can see here.
Now we'll let that dry, and we'll come back, tape off all of this, paint this part of the cylinder black, and I think I'm going to clear coat the head. I don't know how it's going to hold up, but we'll give it a try. Look at that, guys. I think that came out pretty spectacular. So the next thing we're going to do is, like I said, this is going to be painted black. This part of the cylinder will be painted black. And I just kind of want to preserve the finish on this. Now, I don't know if it's going to work, but I'm going to try it. I'm going to try spraying dusting a couple light coats of clear on it. Like I say, it may not work because this does get kind of hot, and the clear could flake off. I don't know, but I'm going to try it and hope for the best. And if it does flake off, oh well. You can see I've got my welding fume extractor set up right above it, so it'll suck up any fumes that come in and push it right outside. Oh yeah, that evens up the color nice. I kind of hope that stays because that looks nice. Yeah, do a couple more coats after that and move on with it. I just quickly sprayed this down with the chassis paint that I painted the frame with. And now we're going to work on the side covers. So I've completely taken this all apart and lubed everything, made sure everything was working nice. So we're all good there. And now we're going to paint this with that silver paint. I'm going to do 3 coats on this, then we'll let it dry, and we are like in the home stretches before we can start assembling this thing. Hopefully this thing runs because we haven't even tried starting it yet. When we get to the point that we start this, this will be the first time that this thing has run in probably, I would say realistically, 15 years that this thing is set. So it ought to be interesting.
I know it'll run because it ran when it was parked, but it's obviously going to need some carburetor work, and I'll be sure to cover that when I do that as well. But probably a couple more episodes and we'll be putting this together.
There, I just dusted on a nice light coat of that silver paint, and to prep these parts for paint, I did the same thing that I did with everything else. I just went over everything really well with this Scotch Brite pad that I cut up into little squares. So yeah, I think it's going to look pretty good. That's the second coat on those. While those are drying, I'm actually going to mask off this motor and try to get this part of the cylinder painted.
So for the black part of the cylinder, I ended up using like a header paint. It's a high-temp paint. But for the clear or the bare head that you see there, the silvery part, when I clear coat that, I don't know if that's going to work or not. I hope it does, but I kind of have a feeling it might not because I don't know how hot that gets, but I think it gets fairly hot. It probably gets hotter than what that clear coat will allow for. But I'm sure from the factory it didn't have a clear coat on it, so basically by me just putting a clear coat on it right now, it'll keep my dirty hands, like when I'm working on it, from leaving stains in that bare aluminum, and it'll just kind of keep it looking good. But that's an experiment I'm just trying.
Alright guys, now I'm just going to paint this one last piece here with this paint here, just a high-temp paint, so that should look good. just like everything else, we'll do a couple light coats.
One of my viewers in a prior episode mentioned about if we painted that part of the cylinder, that it could affect like heat dissipation, and that was a good point, and it got me to thinking. So I was reading on this can, it said our exclusive ceramic formula increases heat dissipation to maintain and protect the paint finish. So ideal for all high temperature applications, withstands intermittent temperatures up to 2000 Fahrenheit, which is 1093 Celsius. Oil and gas resistant. It's ideal for exhaust components, radiator, cooling system, manifolds. So yeah, that'll work good. But yeah, whoever brought that up to me, thank you. That's a good point. So, but now we have the answer to that. So this helps disperse heat.
Right, now I just got to clear those. A light coat, another light coat, then a heavier coat, and we'll be done with it. And I'm using matte just so it doesn't look shiny.
And here it is, guys. This is the finished product, and I am super impressed with how this looks. So just to go over everything that we did, this is 3 coats of the silver wheel paint, followed by 3 coats of the matte finish clear. This has 3 coats of Hi-Temp paint. This is bare casting with just 3 coats of the matte clear, the same clear as this. And these all have 3 coats of silver wheel paint, followed by 3 coats of matte clear, and it looks awesome. I just love the color of this. Like I say, it's not 100% perfect. You can see, I'll try to get it down in there. You can see little, you can see it right there, but there's like a little, looks like a little hair or something. But you know, the point of this isn't to have a showpiece. The point of it is to have something that looks really good, that we can enjoy, and you know, he's going to use it, and that's the intent of it. I don't want something that's so nice that I have to worry when I take it out that he's going to damage it or whatnot. You know, everything that gets damaged here, we can fix ourselves. You know, if this gets scratched or nicked or dinged, we can just scuff it up. And we know what we used. We can just touch it up and make it look good again. So, yeah, it's all about enjoying it. So I'm happy with this. And here's our frame. That's 100% done. I've just got this covered up over here. So we're ready to roll on that. I've taken all the tape off any of the other little pieces. And you can see how we have our little silver emblem there. So frame's done. And all we've got left to do really is clean up these, clean up the wheels, the wheel hubs here. Just basically clean this assembly here, and then sandblast and paint the wheels. We're going to need new tires as well. And then we can start putting this thing back together. So tune in next week where that's what we're going to do. We're going to put the motor back in it, and we are going to start reassembly. And once we get it assembled, then we can fire it up, and I cannot wait. I want to thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for tuning in. If this is something that you like, don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. If you're wondering what I'm working on before it even makes it up to YouTube, you guys can catch me on Instagram and on Facebook. Links are down below. Till next Friday, guys, I will see you then. Take care. Stay safe. See ya.